Hello, YouTube. This is the Galley La Podcast, and today we are going to be reviewing the super hyped chapter of Chapter 1044, Warrior Liberation, with your hosts Akainu Fanboy and Geboss. So we are graced with another continuation of the Whole Cake Island Germa plot going on. Oven seems to be heading out, and it looks like they're dissecting Niji and Yonji, and so Oven leaving, I think it gives an indication that a strong guy's gone, which means Pudding or somebody else is going to free them from this situation. It gives them an opportunity. It's interesting how they still want to investigate more of the tech of Germa, and I guess they have to just focus on them when you think about it, because all the cloning stuff and the snail ships are gone with Ichiji, Reiju, and Judge. But I do think in terms of a thematic approach, I think it's interesting how Oda has really been incorporating this cover story with, I think, what's going on with Sanji later on, but that's the theory for later. Any thoughts you want to add on to that?
Not really. I think that you hit it, that someone's going to come in, but I would say it would probably be the Vince Smokes first of all, and then maybe Pudding helps them out later on, but that's just my thing. I mean, Oven's leaving, and like, I recognize like the pumpkin-headed guy, and but that's it for the other Charlotte family. Like, these are like low-ranking members. So yeah, I couldn't name one of them. Yeah, so which means when we go to what are your thoughts on like the initial parts, the first couple pages of this all, where we're picking off? Okay, so when this first happens, the first page of the chapter is following Luffy saying like, "Oh, what happened to me? Even though I lost, I'm having fun for some reason." So this shows that, I mean, people were like wailing in the streets that this was going to be some sort of like reincarnation or possession type of thing.
For the record, we didn't take that position last week.
No, we didn't. We always thought that this was going to be like some sort of awakening or Gear Fifth or something, which Oda basically said, yeah, you're all right, but but yeah, so it's definitely not possession. And then Yamato was saying, like, is that what Zunisha's saying? Luffy's Joyboy? So Yamato knows about Joyboy from Odin's journals. So, but not necessarily what it is, because all the Laugh Tale pages were ripped out. So I think that this is even more of a reason for her wanting to join them, because she knows that Luffy's Joyboy, and she knows about the whole dawning of a new age type of thing. And this kind of would although she was saying like Momo was the one to bring about the new dawn too, so maybe she was thinking, maybe she's surprised that like Momo isn't Joyboy, it's Luffy. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
So, I'm looking at the placement and everything right now, and also, it's kind of like, this is how I want to look at it. Maybe I'm reading too much in this, you can tell me. Zunisha has like the most knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So, we're showing him first. Then Momo. I mean, you can maybe dispute back and forth who knows more, Momo and Yamato. So, we don't go back to the crew initially, even though like the crew's closest to Luffy, right? So it kind of seems like it's a descent of knowledge of Joyboy from the start, right? And what I find interesting, and you're right about the journal and everything, right? She would have a good understanding. But then we, weirdly enough, cut over to Sanji right after that. Okay? And we haven't seen Sanji in a while. Right? We don't even go over to Kid and Law, you know, because obviously they don't really know much about Joyboy and everything. We go to Sanji. It's really random when you think about that, you know? Because we have all these people who have a special observation or conqueror's haki or personal knowledge of Joyboy, and then we just go over to Sanji for some reason, who's been passed out. And he's like in a state of stress too, and an anxiety, like huff, Luffy, right? And what I kind of find interesting with that is, correct me if I'm wrong, Luffy got picked off by Kaido, and Sanji didn't have any reaction when he came back up. He only got triggered to that when Luffy went into Gear 5th, or the Joyboy form, whatever you want to call it, right? So I just think it's interesting, the structure of this. You have the people who know most about Joyboy, and then it cuts over to Sanji. What triggers his awakening is to Luffy's awakening, and he immediately like, oh, that's Luffy. But in a way, it's like, this is the most Luffy of Luffy, is Gear 5th. Right, that's like the greatest personification of who he is. And I'll tie this into the Lunarians later, but I just kind of thought that was an interesting structure of the chapter right there.
Yeah, well, that's interesting structure, but I was also thinking that it shows that, I mean, Sanji probably has the best observation haki out of all of them. So
he does.
Yeah, because that's his specialty.
It's his specialty, but it also has to be something like meaningful, right? Because remember when you thought the woman was in danger, and then Luffy's like, wow, he has like stronger observation than I do, because I didn't even hear that. And I think like there's a part of it where there's an emotional aspect. If there's something emotionally you care about, you're going to have a higher tuned with that, because emotion does affect observation haki. Like look at Katakuri. When he got all flustered, it messed up his observation haki. And obviously, clearly, like Sanji has a good connection emotionally to Luffy, but I think there's a deeper level to this that we'll get into more deeply, because he was the only crew member that sends Luffy out of this whole thing, on the entire crew, in regards to that.
Well, we don't even know if anyone besides like Usopp in the crew has haki. I mean, Jinbei, but we didn't even see his reaction to this.
Actually, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. Usopp has a really good observation haki, but he didn't pick up.
Well, we didn't see anything, so.
But I think Oda would have made it a point. Like,
yeah, he specifically made it so that Sanji was the one that sensed
it. The only one, right? And so, but it is interesting, like, because Usopp's really good at observation, and he wasn't showcased with Sanji with this. And but going on, and then you get to Kid and Law. So they feel like something's up too. They just don't know specifically what it is. They can't articulate it. Same with Marco. All the high tiers, but it seems like only the high tier characters are picking this up right now.
Yeah.
Because Nami didn't pick it up, which is fine. I'm not trying to shit on her, but it just seems like there's like a hierarchy in that sense. And then. So I don't know if you have any more on that, but it is interesting. And then we kind of move into the Mary Joa stuff too. I don't know if you want to take a spike at that.
So yeah, we go. I don't have anything to add to that, but we go to Mary Joa, and we see the Gorosei talking about this fruit, about Luffy's fruit, and we kind of theorized that it was going to be Luffy's fruit that they were talking about. About the name change and everything. Also, they specifically pointed out that they lost one of their elite members in the CP0 agent dying. So he was one of the strongest, but he was getting snuck up on by Drake and everything. So not to hate on Drake, but
yeah.
But
he had a lot on his mind. Let's put it that way too.
Yeah. And it seemed like their whole point was this was the best opportunity to interfere and eliminate Luffy in that way, which was, I think if it wasn't for his fruit, he would have died.
Yes, 100%. I know we still didn't really get much clarification what really happened to him last chapter in terms of was it a death or was it just near death type of thing? And maybe we'll get more exposition on that. But you do see the world government. It is always better to eliminate dangerous variables. That's a very world government way, very utilitarian way of looking at things. Do whatever you want to do, no matter how messed up it is, to keep the world order, kind of thing,
Yeah, and then we get the revelation that they've been going after Luffy's fruit for 800 years, which dates back to the Void Century. And they say that it's like the fruit has a will of its own, and then they say Zoan fruits do that. And then we get the reveal that Luffy's fruit is a Zoan type fruit, the human fruit, mythical model, Nika.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you feel about this? Because people have been calling it like, oh, this is bullshit. This is a retcon. It's out of left field. What do you think about it?
Okay, so in terms of like having, we've been introduced to Awakening since the Flamingo. So in that respect, that's not too much of an ass pull.
Mm-hmm.
Luffy's trained a lot in various ways. I'm not angry about that. I don't think it's an ass pull power up because, again, even if Luffy defeats Kaido, I don't think it's a clear 1v1. So I'm not angry about a lot of that. I think my only concern, and I do agree this would be a red mark on the story. I'm not going to try to berate this point too much because I think it's been discussed by a lot of people. Again, with the world government saying it is always better to eliminate dangerous variables. And we can see that with Ace. They were killing, newborns, and because he was, Goldie Rodder's son. And then Robin, they gave this huge bounty. They destroyed a whole country just to prevent, the poneglyphs, right? Mm-hmm. And then we just see a couple chapters where Luffy is more dangerous than Robin, but look what they did for Robin as a kid. So my whole point is, like, if Luffy, objectively speaking, with that fruit is more dangerous than Robin, why didn't they pull out all the stops to take him out as they did Robin and or Ace? And so you could say for his youth, okay, the world government didn't do shit because, like, Garp was hiding him, basically, with the bandits. Okay, I'm fine with that. There's bounty, the description of his powers, Crocodile, clearly, and with the report with Smoker, like, they have good enough intel with this.
I mean, he was fighting right on their doorstep at Marineford.
Yeah, and in his lobby also.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's plenty of times to be like, okay, this is the fruit, and you could be like, someone brought this up to me, like, okay, well, they sent Kuma that one time, and then as soon as Ace was killed, they sent all the admirals after him. Okay, that's fine, that's true. But how the world government works, they'll kill you as a baby, right? Yeah. So there was a lot more before Marineford, and they have the intelligence. And if this is the most dangerous thing ever, all your intel resources are going to be forced on that. And Luffy fought literal intel agents, right, back in Eddie's lobby. So you could say not all those people knew, but the world government knew, etc. And I think it would be, I'm just trying to be consistent, it would be a negative, a really bad hurt to the show if they don't have a good explanation for why the world government held back. But I have a potential reason why they may have, but you can, you have anything you want to add to that, though?
So, really quick, so, relating back to Luffy's fruit, this is, definitely an awakening of his fruit. So I'm wondering if maybe the fruit is only dangerous if it's awakened, because, like, in the later part of the chapter, we can kind of see that it has its own, like, it can sort of bend reality in a certain way. But maybe they were seeing what was happening with like Luffy took out. So all this post time skip stuff is only taking the place over what, a few months, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the only thing is that once Luffy appeared and the government's kind of gotten a show of his power, because I think they had their eyes on him mainly starting with Dressrosa, because he took down Doflamingo, and Fujitora was there and everything. Like, Smoker was at Punk Hazard, but they didn't really see Luffy in action that much, besides his usual stuff. Like, they didn't necessarily see how powerful he was. But once he took down Doflamingo and he did the stuff with Big Mom, I think that at this point they're like, okay, he's gotten so strong that he's probably close to his awakening, and if that's the case, we need to take him out. So that's kind of my feeling about it. But I think we can go into our other theory now. We talked about this, how potentially Luffy was protected by Shanks, because Luffy or Shanks has the connection where he met with the Gorosei, and he said, I need to talk to you about a certain pirate. And I'm just thinking, like, because Shanks had the Gum Gum fruit from chapter 1.
Yeah.
And he kidnapped it from a government ship. And he knows stuff about Laugh Tale as well. He wasn't there, but he knows about it. So I'm just wondering if... So my theory was that there's only one unknown road poneglyph. And I'm wondering if, in order to keep Luffy safe, like, Shanks gave the poneglyph to the government, saying, like, they won't be able to make it to Laugh Tale if you have it. So even if he awakens, like, just leave him alone.
Yeah.
So that would be my theory. But do you have anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, like, I think because the government, they don't care, like, if you're a proximate threat or even if you have the desire to hurt the world, they'll just kill you regardless, in a way, like Robin, you know? Like, she's just a little girl. She wasn't a threat, and they still put that huge bounty on her head. And so that's why I'm more inclined to think Shanks has been defending Luffy. And I think with the Yonko and just pirates in general in this world, everybody has a legend and an image, but then as the story continues, they don't live up to it. So, classic example is like Whitebeard, where he really cares about his family, except Wano. You know, Kaido could do whatever he wants there, you know, with regardless with the Kiku and the Izo stuff and the connections there. And how Odin's kids were, on the crew too and everything. No, that's fine. You do what you want to do. So I think, yeah, they're good characters, but they live short of, they're kind of hypocrites in some capacity. And I think with Shanks, Oda has, like, portrayed him as a perfect human being. And I think it would be a good twist where, yeah, he's a really great guy, but he's kind of been like a snitch and kind of the government's bitch in a way by, like, helping out the government extensively to keep Luffy alive, because he's willing to sacrifice his honor for the excellence that Luffy's going to be. So maybe it's like, don't worry, world government, I'll stop Kaido so you guys can kill Whitebeard, right? Or here's Uranus, or here's a rope poneglyph, like you said. Or maybe he's been the government's dog under the guise of a Yonko this whole time, just to give him that. So, one, is more believable that the government's like, okay, we'll hold off a little bit, but we'll kill him if the opportunity comes up, compared to, like, okay, like, this really goes against every way the government acted this whole time, and they've had knowledge of this fruit. And because Luffy not only has the fruit, but he has the genes of Garp and Dragon, right? It's a really dangerous person to get that fruit. It's not like Pearl from the Baratier arc getting the Gum Gum fruit, right? This is like actually someone with a lot of dangerous potential.
Yeah.
And the government will just kill you for being biologically related to troublesome people, let alone Garp and Dragon. So I think that's the only way to make sense of it, is if Shanks has been colluding with the government this whole time. I think that's the only way to prevent this kind of really gaping plot hole in the story, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I have a more positive outlook on Shanks than you do in his role in this. Because you think he's...
I think it's more of a tragedy. Not like... I'm not like shitty on him. I just think it's more of a tragic aspect of his character.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But another thing I was going to bring up in terms of the fruit is that since it's a Zoan now, so I think it was Crocodile and Impel Down specifically said, like, an awakened Zoan recovers really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that can kind of play into how Luffy took so much damage throughout the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and they said there's no more power, more ridiculous. And some people say this is strength, and I think it's more like ridiculous in the sense like, well, one is kind of goofy.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Yeah, it's like ironic that a power like that could be so powerful, right? That's really dorky. In that sense, it could be, there's so many meanings, but also it could be like its capacity to change the world, because when we get into like, well, maybe we'll talk about that more later, but I think once we move more towards, it seems kind of interesting. It feels like it goes forward into the chapter, the whole Hiyori thing with Orochi. I don't know, maybe it isn't because there was a strong connection between Odin and Joyboy too. But what do you think about this section overall?
I thought it was fine up until kind of the end, but it's more of like Orochi just kind of begging for his life, and kind of showing the differences between like Orochi and Odin even more. Like, Odin kept his word to Orochi that he was gonna dance and everything, and like he endured all of this for his people, whereas Orochi is like pretending. He's like, oh, I loved Odin too. I was being used by Kaido. But it's just showing like what type of a leader difference and what the character is between them.
Yeah, and then Kanjuro accidentally attacks Orochi too, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, people pointed out like Kanjuro's whole thing was like, oh, this is a suicide pact with everything. He was planning on burning the whole place down. So I think because of that, he went to Orochi. So I don't know. I find this Orochi stuff kind of strangely handled because of the whole Hiyori thing, and Denjiro specifically would have a reason to kill Orochi, but Denjiro hasn't been seen in what, like 40 chapters or something?
He's taking a break.
Yeah, he's the one scabbard that we haven't seen at all. We got like 20 chapters of the Raizo fight, but we haven't seen anything of Denjiro, so I don't know. I always thought that like if like Hiyori couldn't bring herself to do it, and Denjiro would come in and kill Orochi. but I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and she said, the dawn is sure to come, which is kind of interesting. And then he cut back to Luffy,
Yeah.
and he said, "Ooh, I can do everything I wanted to do. I think I could fight a bit longer. My heartbeat sounds so funny." And just a quick little callback to Sanji, like, and then this is Luffy saying, like, this is the most I've ever been of myself. And then that's what Sanji recognizes him as kind of earlier to awaken him. This is the pinnacle of what I could do. This is Gear 5.
Yeah.
So I guess we could say this is going to be his strongest form for the rest of the series. He's going to, like, add some more to it, but there's not going to be anything above this, it seems,
Yeah, well, based on what he does, I would hope that this is his strongest. Because then we cut to Kaido, who's in the Skull Dome, and he sees like Luffy's Conqueror's Haki coming from the ceiling, which is are these the biggest Conqueror's Haki like lightning that we've seen? Because they're reaching all the way down from the roof into the main floor.
Yeah, I guess there's the sky split stuff, but we didn't really see, sparks come out, I guess, with that. Yeah, I'm just talking about the displays of what it affects, I guess. But it's insane. I was shocked when I saw that big of an arm. That's like year three squared or something.
Yeah, and Kaido's like, what is up there? Like, because he thought that Luffy was gone. And, but yeah, you see Luffy literally just grab Kaido in dragon form.
Yes, which is insane. You see Law and Kid are just like shocked, and then Chopper's giving his important insight, and then we see Kaido get taken out. And yeah, it immediately gets goofy a little bit. He's just getting thrown around. Kaido, his eyes are like flying off and everything.
Yeah.
He gets hit, and then Luffy's like smiling this entire time, and which is, and then and then Luffy's eyes fly off, and this is kind of where I think it's like a consensus, right? His awakening is a combination of Gear 5, Conqueror's Haki, and everything. Like, his awakening is Gear 5, basically, right? And then
Gear 5 is his awakening, yeah.
Yeah. And then he turns the ground into rubber, which is, kind of been roughly, that's been speculated, going again. And he shoots it back at Kaido, which is, that's a level of power I didn't think people thought with the awakening.
Only Raizo could shoot Kaido's breath back at him.
That's true.
That's true.
Sorry, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say, it looks like, just from what we're seeing, like Gear 5 is like an amalgamation of all the other gears, because Luffy, like when he's twirling Kaido around and everything, his body looks like Gear 4th. When he goes to pick up Kaido, that's Gear 3rd. So I think because hold on, back to the I thought that maybe it was in the unofficial translation, but here it is. Possessing a body with the properties of rubber and fighting in whatever way he fancies. So I mentioned earlier that it's kind of like a reality warping thing. Like, it seems like Luffy's ability is just kind of to use whatever comes to his imagination. And for what fits him the best. And it's interesting because with typical Zoans, like we saw the awakened Zoans in Impel Down, and they were just the big forms of their animals. And they didn't necessarily affect anything outside of themselves, but Luffy can affect the ground and his environment like a Paramecia awakening, like we saw with Katakuri and Doflamingo.
I'd say he's a mythical, though. I think that that's part of the reason why it's extended more.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. But like, this is like completely busted.
It's busted, and I think it works perfectly. I don't really think it's that much of an ass pull, to be honest. I think it works well with his character. It's a combination of everything else. And I just think it fits his personality. I kind of think like some of the art of what Gear 5 would look like, it's just not Luffy. Some of the fan art they did. The super serious thing. And so I kind of want to bring in my Sanji connection just to the full force with this, where people notice the eyebrows. Okay, so that's connection 1. Sanji eyebrows, and 2, that's followed by Sanji was the only one that particularly noticed, how we say, and 2, he only woke up when Luffy went into this form where he has these eyebrows. 3, Luffy has fire. And thinking back on this, we saw kind of Red Hawk. We're like, oh, that must just be a friction thing. But no, like, the Red Hawk is actually linked to his fruit now that we look at it, basically. And as Queen pointed out, like, wait, you have fire popping out of your body? You must be a Lunarian, because, like, humans just don't shoot out fire, right? And so that's, like, kind of a 4th thing. And how I've been thinking about it over these past couple days, I think Sanji. Well, oh yeah, and the final link I want to put out here. King had knowledge of Joyboy, and who's a pretty minor character in the grand scheme of things, and so how Sanji reacted particularly to Joyboy in this specific once the Joyboy form happened. So I kind of think how I see it. Genetically speaking, Joyboy was in fact Lunarian. And this fruit was passed down through the Lunarian tribe. And that's why the world government killed the Lunarians. Because they didn't want to risk a Joyboy coming back, basically, right? And that's how King knew about it. That would explain the link of fire that we both see in Luffy, Sanji, and King. And also, kind of another dimension in it too is like, we're talking about Luffy's durability, but he has very strong durability, like King had very strong durability too. So how in Sanji's lineage, just with the Bin Smokes, it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years too. So King's tribe was ancient. There's like a lot of potential connections here going on with a lot of this stuff. And also, here's a kind of another thing too. The first indicator we got that Sanji was from the North Blue was in reference to Nolan the Liar, because that was a book that was widely distributed in the North Blue, and that's right before they led up to Skypiea also. And also the God Nika thing has a strong connection with Nolan, Skypiea, obviously, too. So there's just a lot of thematic things that I've kind of been thinking about with Sanji for a while, but I genuinely think like Sanji is a Lunarian, but and also the Lunarian people do have link to Luffy too. And I think if you see like Joyboy as like an actual god, you could see the Lunarians as like his angels too, in a way, And since Sanji's one of the wings of the Pirate King, right? He's kind of like one of Luffy's guardian angels in a way, right? The one that helps him fly out. So that's just kind of how I feed that.
Well, also the first time we ever heard about a sun god was in Nolan's flashback. That's true. They were offering up that one girl to the sun god, and that kind of relates back to like they were hoping to be freed of their suffering or whatever. So it was an offering to the sun god, who represents freedom. And it's in like a twisted way that they were going about it. But yeah, so I'm just thinking if there's something, because Judge was dealing with like the lineage factor, if and King was captured and everything, like maybe they were trying to find something out about the fruit, or trying to maybe recreate it, like they were trying to recreate Kaido's fruit.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, trying to recreate the Joyboy fruit baby too.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I thought was interesting. We never see Judge's eyebrows.
Yeah.
Which is good. And now he's getting reintroduced back into the story, and we're talking about lineage. You see the Big Mom pirates trying to get into the genetics and the lineage of the Vin Smokes, dissecting him, and then now we're given this chapter, like Sanji's link to his lineage and his connection to Luffy, the Void Century, and all this stuff too. I don't like. I think it's just too on the nose for Oda to be like, you know, Sanji having this weird reaction to Luffy. This is what I'm trying to get across, and hopefully. I don't know, like, yeah, Zoro's stronger than Sanji, and I kind of think the gap's a little too big for my thing. But if Oda really starts expanding the lore even more into Sanji's depth as a character with this, I could care less at this point, because I think that'd be really damn cool. Because I think there's a lot of mystery with the Vin Smokes, just with how ancient they are, and the links they could have with the Void Century.
Well, and Zoro's gonna get his time to shine because he's gonna reincarnate as Ryuma.
Well, you're right. What's kind of hilarious is like Sanji has like his quote-unquote reincarnation, his lineage. It might actually happen with him and not Zoro. Looking back on it, you know, it seems like Oda's going more in that direction. Like Ryuma wasn't going all crazy just now when Luffy wanted the Joyboy form. It was Sanji.
Yeah, I was also going to point out, really quick, going back to the Sanji thing, was that Sanji's eyebrow is back to normal. I don't know if it was back to normal at the end of his fight, but it's definitely back to normal now.
Yes, it's back to normal. And you know what I would really hope is that we get potentially a Mr. Prince moment out of Sanji, because we haven't gotten that yet, and he usually does it at the end of the arc. And since we're getting closer to the end of the arc, it's definitely saying that at the end. That'd be really cool now that he's back in the game, basically. He's kind of regained consciousness, you know?
I mean...
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely getting close to the arc, because, like, the blurb at the end of it is, the battle reaches its finale. So, I would say Kaido might get defeated within the next couple chapters, but here's my thing. There has to be some sort of limitation or drawback to using this power, because it's way too powerful right now. Or like Luffy can only use it for a set amount of time, like Gear 4. Compared to, because if he can just spam this whole ability, like all the time, like Akainu who, like.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure.
Because he's like literally baby shaking Kaido.
The only thing I'd say reply to that, though, is full zone forms tend to be the weakest forms, though. And Kaido's been kind of baby shaked a little bit in this form before, too. Those would just be some caveats I'd add there. And I don't think Kaido has hit his final form either, you know, from what I can tell. So, but there is kind of an interesting thing. Like, if he gives Kaido the Doflamingo treatment from, like, Gear 4, and it's like, shit, like, Blackbeard and Akainu are gonna need some roids, like some devil fruit roids or something, because this is not gonna turn out well.
Exactly, because, like, at this point, it's like, well, is Luffy gonna be the strongest after this now? Like, declared the strongest?
Well, King of Lightning, you know, he gave a poll, and he said, is Luffy stronger than Mihawk? And Luffy won pretty handedly, and, you know, in that Twitter poll. It was, like, not even close. And I don't know. I think it really depends. Like, okay, well, let's look at the limitations here, you know, on what's going to happen. I mean, here's another thing. You have to die to activate this form. Yeah. There's another aspect to that, too.
But here's... I'm just going through things in my head. Here's another thing. So Luffy's eyes are very different in this form. It's the circle with the dot in the middle. And I mean, that's usually only shown when people are like serious or whatever, but we've seen multiple times in this chapter that Luffy's consistently drawn that way. So I'm just wondering, the only people who have been consistently shown that way are Zunisha, Mihawk, and Emu. So we kind of knew about the three others, but now with this one, there has to be some sort of reason for it.
Yeah, there has to be a There has to. I think it's indicative of like ancientness, basically. I mean, I don't know Mihawk's. I would scrap on Zoro a little bit, just all humor, but Zoro does need an aspect of ancientness to him as one of the wings of the pirates, and he doesn't have that right now.
Yeah.
Right, and if Mihawk has that link to the ancientness with his eyes, then hopefully something can be developed more and fleshed out more with that too.
Zoro's gonna get his Sharingan in his scar eye.
Like we've dodged one Naruto bullet with the reincarnation shit. We don't need to get hit with the other one.
Which is why when people were upset with this whole Joyboy thing, it's like, just wait for it to pan out, because I figured it wasn't going to be a possession type thing. But
we weren't even phased once by it last week. We were just like, this isn't nearly as spiritual or supernatural as Naruto is as a series. Like, and Oda's not going to rip off Kishimoto like that. Like, it's such a flagrant way. Like, that's not his style. It's never been.
Yeah. But I was also going to bring up that with Luffy being a Zoan type, and specifically like a human model, it kind of bears a mirror to Chopper with his different forms. And like Luffy's gears could be kind of considered like Chopper's different points, like his brain point, his jump point, his guard point, his all those different ones. And it's funny because it's specifically the human fruit that has those different ones, compared to compared to like an animal. So I think that might be like because humans are a more evolved species type of thing. Different aspects to them.
Right. And when you get into the whole willpower of zone fruits, going after, like, let's say, people who have personalities representative of it, I was kind of thinking like Sengoku. He has Conqueror Taki, right?
Yeah.
And so in a way, it's kind of fitting he got a god fruit when he right of the Buddha.
Yeah.
Because he has like that willpower. It's like, okay, yeah, this guy needs to go with him. The Buddha's wise, and you can disagree with some of Sengoku's moves, but he's a wise dude. He's not, he's very much like a Buddha. Haku, I think he's most morally good, the most human out of CP, Cypher Bowl, because after Zoro defeated him, he kind of is like, I actually really like that life I was living, as a Galley La shipman. So they gave him the Herblore fruit, right? And I actually still think Haku might actually become a good guy by the end of the series. But and then Lucci, obviously, he's just ruthless predator, so he gets the Jaguar fruit too. So Oda's kind of been doing the zone personality things for a while now,
Yeah.
And I think Kaido's backstory is going to link to his fruit in a very profound way, also.
Yeah, because we're still waiting on that Kaido flashback, but
yeah, so maybe like 6 chapters, I'd say, where this fight's fully resolved, including the flashback, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
6, 7, around there. Yeah.
And yeah, I think this is one of the most important chapters of the series.
100%, yeah.
In terms of like where the story's going at this point. Because it's
definitely.
Because it's officially, there's an official connection now between Nika and Joyboy, and we have to figure out how the Will of D plays along in here, because that relates back to the smiles as well. And Luffy's done nothing but smile in this whole chapter.
Yeah.
With this new power.
Which makes you think with the whole Caesar Clown, Vegapunk, Mads, all that jazz. It makes you think like the project that the world government had them was to actually recreate Luffy's fruit.
Yeah. And
you know, it's like all these guys have a very interesting connection. The more you think about it, the scientific stuff.
Yeah, and Vegapunk's got to be explored sometime in the future.
We might even be introduced to him in Kaido's flashback because of Queen.
Maybe. This is gonna be a spicy flashback.
I think it has to be because like that's gonna be the introduction of. I think that's how Oda's gonna explain his fruit, because we're not gonna be able to get knowledge from anyone else except like the Gorosei or Shanks, basically. Yeah. So it's like, oh, here's this crazy fruit, and here's this flashback to explain stuff about this crazy fruit. And you have a Lunarian named King who knows about Joyboy, and then you have a guy named Queen who was potentially trying to recreate this thing and just having knowledge about devil fruits too, and who knows Vegapunk. I think there's a lot of potential Oda could do with that kind of stuff.
But
yeah,
we didn't even bring up the fact that like Kaido straight up said like at the end of the chapter, I didn't want to win that way back when with the CP0 agent. So I mean, it shows that this fight is back on.
Yeah, and can't wait, and no break. So
yeah,
we have a lot of good stuff to look forward to, and Oda defied the haters. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and I think with this new awakening, it kind of, it's kind of more possible now. Like I've seen people predict that Onigashimi's gonna fall, but Luffy's gonna use his awakening to rubberify everything and make it bounce off.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's definitely gonna happen now. But I do, like I said, I just hope there's more of a drawback, because I think our MC is getting very powerful, which is great to see. But we gotta, slow it down a little. We got a couple more major fights left in the series,
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, good chapter. I mean, incredible chapter. But leave a like if you enjoyed the video. A little bit of a long one today, but it definitely deserved the length. And subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you later on this week for the next chapter. Everyone have a good one. See ya.
Peace.